My goodness, folks, I thought hosting Good Natured here at Casa Otto would make things simpler, but we had a near tragedy here just a couple of minutes ago. I had the tripod and everything all set up and ready to go. And then my roommates here, the furry ones, got into a little bit of a tussle. I think I've got things pretty much back to normal as things are around here. As long as everyone can see me and hear me, and most important, see the screen share, I think we're good to go. It looks as though, yeah, I'm getting a read on the microphone. So let's go ahead and get tonight's program started. There we go. Folks, you know, it's been a couple of weeks since we've been able to gather. And because of that, we've got a couple of columns that we still need to review. One was, Do You Speak Naturalist? And I didn't mean this to sound, you know, hoity-toity or snobbish or anything like that. It's just when you're around nature people, you can oftentimes sense, you know, that they've been following things in the natural world for some time, just because of the way they speak. You know, just a quick example, one that wasn't in the article, but I had a call a couple of months ago from a woman who said she thought she saw a river otter. And that immediately caught my ear, because a lot of times people will say, they'll just say otter. And of course, there's not just otters, there's sea otters and river otters. And the fact that she said river otter actually helped, in my eyes anyway, gave her a little bit more credibility. I went to the area where she said that she'd seen the river otter. And of course, the river otter by then was gone, but I still kind of wonder if that was indeed an otter sighting here in Kane County. Speaking of that, and I don't want to get too far off track because we got a lot to cover tonight, but I will be in the next couple of weeks giving you some information on a Learn from the Expert series program that we've just scheduled for this coming spring on river otters in, yes, Kane County. So exciting developments there, and I'll give you the details once everything is booked. But anyway, Do You Speak Naturalist was just kind of a tongue-in-cheek look at the way nature people tend to talk. And this little motion clip here shows one of our relatively common words. I think we all recognize it. And a lot of times when people see these birds, they say, oh, it's a seagull. And I have to admit, I too, sometimes that C comes out along with the word gull. Seagull is a bird that is often associated with shorelines, but as we all know, even inland here in northern Illinois, we see an awful lot of these birds. Now, I've heard that they are drawn inland by of course, food is a big attractant for them. And one of the things we have in increasing sizes and quantities around here are landfills. Landfills sometimes are a little bit more open and attract creatures that are not terribly fussy about what they feed on. And the ring-billed gull is one of, and the herring gull, those are probably the two most common gulls that we see inland like this. You get over towards Lake Michigan, and of course, if you travel to a coast like, you know, the East Coast or the West Coast of the United States, and you see a gull, you could maybe call it a seagull and get away with it. But just remember, these are birds of the family Laridae, and there's a lot of them that don't actually live on a coastline. So if you really want to be technical, go ahead and call it a gull instead of a seagull. They like chips too. So here's another bird. We've got in a great number in this area, and some people call them Canadian geese and some people call them Canada geese. Which one is it? Well, if we look at the words, and this is a little bit of a naturalist thing, but it's also more of a grammar thing. Canadian, that's an adjective. And really, you can apply that adjective to any goose from Canada, but the Canada goose is widespread across North America. So we're going to vote for Canada goose. Branta canadensis. In fact, that name is reflected, the Canada part of the name is reflected in the scientific name of this bird. And yeah, a Canadian goose would be any goose from Canada, just like these guys here, eh? Might not look like Canada in the background, but you can always tell by the way they sound. Yay. My apologies if any of you are Canadian. My Canadian accent isn't what it should be. Hey. So another, and this again, this is actually kind of an interesting topic because these animals, these large grazing herbivores, in fact, they're being reintroduced to some of the larger prairie restorations here in Northern Illinois. We've got them at Mechusa grasslands, which was out near Oregon, Illinois, and we've got them down at Medewin. I hear some forest preserves are maybe experimenting with that too, and some of their larger installations. We'll might have more news on that somewhere down the road, but a large grazing herbivore is an important part when we're talking about recreating or bringing back the elements of landscapes as they were prior to or at the time of European settlement. Large grazing herbivores were certainly a part of that. And we're learning how much of an important role they play in the success of the plants, that both the grasses and the forbs, the grasses and the flowers that grow in prairie ecosystems. Anyway, for the most part, when restoration ecologists are talking about bringing back these large grazing herbivores, they're calling them bison. But gosh, you know, in American folklore, what do we hear about? You know, it's not give me a home where the bison roam, where the deer and the antelope it's a home where the buffalo roam. So, you know, it turns out that buffalo, and we run into this a lot of times with common names. If we stuck strictly with the scientific name, bison, there's no, there would be no discussion at all of what to call this animal. But buffalo, I'm going to come down on the side of bison because buffalo is actually, it dates back to when the French fur traders were coming here to North America. When they first saw the bison, they called them, and again, just like my Canadian is not so good, my French is even worse. They would say, they called these animals bœuf. And they were using that term from what they knew in their past of the large grazing herbivores in Asia and Africa, which are what biologists call the true buffalo. There's a lot of anatomical, physiological differences between buffalo and bison, but I did a little bit of extra digging into this origin of buffalo and bison, and the scientific name for these animals was actually applied later than the common name buffalo, the French-based word buffalo. So if you go by, you know, what history says, buffalo is the older term, but bison is what nature nerds actually would look to as the more, you know, the proper term for these animals. Now, after that article ran, I received an email. I'd also mentioned about how around here, people, when they get a rash, a dermatitis after being outside, an itchy, red, blistering rash. Some people will say, oh, I got into poison oak. And in this area, what we have isn't poison oak. Poison oak is certainly a plant, but it doesn't grow in this part of the country. What we have in this area is poison ivy. And I think it went on to say something about how poison ivy can sometimes be confused with plants that don't cause a reaction, such as box elder. Anyway, this person wrote and said that I wasn't quite clear enough in how I described those plants. I said that box elder leaves are directly across from each other on the stem, while poison ivies aren't. Yet the photo shows poison ivy with leaves attached to the stem like the box elder. Okay, so this is where we'll take just a little detour and talk about how plants grow and what their parts are. This is the graphic that ran with that the article in Kane County Connects. I didn't supply this photo, but it I can see what she's saying. What we're looking at here, poison ivy, poison oak, and then we got a bonus in this picture of poison sumac. These are all plants that have what we call compound leaves. One single leaf is made up of several parts or leaflets. And when you look at the two sides, say the leaflets that are on either side of the three leaflet poison ivy or poison oak, they do indeed look as though they are growing directly apart from each other. But when we look at how these plants grow out in the real world, on the left-hand side here, we have poison ivy. And on the right, we have, this was actually part of a video I made about how you tell the difference between poison ivy and box elder. So on the right, we have box elder. And if you look at the V, it almost looks like an upside down peace sign here, or maybe a bird's foot. Those are the stems of the leaflets of box elder, and they are exactly opposite from each other on the larger stem of the plant. On the left-hand side here, we've got poison ivy. And if we follow that stem as it goes up the tree, you'll see that these leaflets, leaves of three, which are 1, 2, 3 leaflets, 1, 2, 3 leaflets, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. They are growing not opposite each other, but alternating as we go up the stem. I found one other graphic that might help a little bit too, and I hope that Zoom black bar doesn't obscure this for you, but on the left-hand side of this graphic, we've got box elder, and there's the leaves of 3 of the box elder tree, which, by the way, it's also called an ash leaf maple because of the way those leaflets grow. But anyway, box elder being a maple, those leaflets grow exactly opposite each other. So you can, when you look at the plant as a whole and not just a single leaf with its 3 leaflets, you'll see that more orderly growth habit of opposite growing leaflets. On the right-hand side, we've got our poison ivy, and you can see there that the compound leaves grow in alternating fashion in that drawing. So anyway, didn't mean to confuse folks, but I hope that sets the record straight. Now, we had another column. This actually goes back. I modify it every few years. Remember the comedian Jeff Foxworthy? I think he's still out there doing shows, but he used to say, you know, you might be a redneck if. Well, we around the office, we started coming up with little sayings about how you might be a naturalist if. And some of it had to do with, you know, the weird things you'd find in your refrigerator or your freezer. Looking at what's behind me here, you can see I don't have the typical sort of things you might find in a usual, you know, home, decorated home. But these are all things that are important to me. The woodpecker home, the log with the woodpecker home in it, and all the different rocks from different places I've gone. Anyway, I digress. You might be a naturalist if you get hung up on things like, say, reindeer. I tried to give this column a little bit of a holiday spin. And in the world of reindeer, which are also known as caribou, but caribou, that term tends to be used when we're looking at wild herds of these deer creatures. When we're talking about domesticated stock, that's when we tend to use the term reindeer. The males and the females both grow antlers. That's kind of a departure from what we're used to here in North America, our white-tailed deer, even our mule deer out west. They only the males grow antlers. The females do not. But reindeer land, both sexes will have antlers on their heads, and both males and females will shed their antlers, but they do so at different times. The males, they use their antlers, and if we go back and look, I mean, that's a pretty impressive set of antlers there on the male. That one, females may look at that to help gauge who is in good breeding condition. The males will use their antlers amongst themselves to jostle and wrestle and achieve dominance within a herd, and who's going to get the breeding rights for the season. So that all goes on in a period known as the rut, and it finishes as the herd is heading into wintertime. So males in reindeer land, they will shed those antlers usually in the fall, sometimes very, very early winter, but certainly by Christmas time, they would not be walking around with antlers on their heads. Now, the females, they shed their antlers a little bit later on. The thought is that those antlers are useful grazing where these animals do, and the scrubland, tundra types of areas, they might need to use those antlers to brush, push snow away, uncover moss and lichens and other parts of their diet. So they actually keep their antlers until the springtime, as they're rearing their calves. So yes, the antlers come off, but they come off at different times. And that's what leads us to this whole Santa's reindeer might in fact all be girls. On December 25th, as they're making their trip around the world, every image I've ever seen has shown them with antlers. So even Dasher and Donner and some of the more masculine sounding names, I think if we're really going to be nature nerdly correct about it, these would all be female reindeer. Now, another reference I tossed out was in the song, The 12 Days of Christmas. I know in fact, I used to do some cartooning, and I remember drawing the 12 Days of Christmas. And I think when I got to the lyric about the 4 calling birds, I put them in a phone booth. That's how long ago that I drew that cartoon. But calling birds is actually looking back at the history of the song and where it was written and the time it was written, calling birds were probably actually collie birds. And in England, collie meant black as in coal, like a collier or a coal mine. And so these birds were not actually calling, they were collie, which would have made them blackbirds. Here's another image, and this outline really makes it obvious what sort of bird this is. Now, here in the United States, the birds we refer to as blackbirds are grackles. They are in the, I believe it's the Icterid family. Their grackles are related to orioles and other red-winged blackbirds. They're in their own family. The blackbirds of the old world are actually related to these guys. And it's pretty obvious when you look side by side at the outlines of these birds that they are indeed thrushes. Turdus is the genus. And Migratorius is, of course, our American robin. And then we've got our European version on the right-hand side. So calling birds are actually collie birds, the European cousin of our American robins. So with that, let's transition to another email I got. Chris, I think you tuned in this evening. This was from you a couple of weeks ago. One of my favorite things about this time of year, when the leaves do fall, which they did only recently here with our unseasonably warm temperatures and the rain that we got. With the leaves off the trees, you can walk around and you can see the nests in the trees. And Chris noticed that it was a small nest, and I always like to, if I'm looking at a photo, like to have some frame of reference for size. And bless your heart, Chris, you did remember to add some Blistex. So if you've been tuning into Good Natured for a while, you know your basic standard lip balm is 2 5/8 inches long. So this is an inner cup that's maybe, a little over 2.5 inches long, inches wide. But more important, when you took the picture, Chris, of the inside of this nest, that's where the tip off was of who the builder was. This is a nest that has at its base mud, and then its construction materials are by and large grasses and plant stems. So there's really only one bird in this area that makes a nest with those materials, and it is in fact Turnus migratorius, an American robin, the cousin of the calling bird, also known as the collie bird. The Eastern phoebe will also make a nest with mud, but they don't use plant stems as much as they use mosses. And also phoebes don't tend to, they like to build it, at least in this area, they like to build around structures. We see a lot of times their nests are on buildings, garages. Actually, a lot of our forest preserves have Eastern phoebe nests on the posts. So much appreciate the size reference there. When I read the email, Chris, and you said that the nest was small, I was picturing tiny, but having that lip balm reference helped get in my mind how big it was, and then having that inside shot it's showing the mud helped us make that identification. I encourage you all, now that it's easy to see these tree nests up in the trees, it is kind of a fun hobby to develop if you're out and about walking around. You really can get to start to make some connections between the birds that you might have heard, especially if you're walking around your own neighborhood, birds that you hear in the springtime when they're singing their breeding songs, versus you can connect that then to the nest that you're seeing as we get into our cold weather months, and the nest being easier to see. Even though the birds aren't there, you can start to see who is living where and what they leave behind. It's a fun hobby. Now, this is a question I like to toss out. We're talking about looking around and observing what you have around you. This was an exercise that I actually learned when I went back to school to get a job in the field of outdoor education. This was a graduate level course. And the professor asked the question, where are the white parts on a robin? We were just looking at that robin. Anybody want to take a stab at that? Of course, I don't know if I can see the chat from here. But robins actually have I wouldn't say a fair amount of white, but there's a fair number of parts on the robin that are white. You know, up here by the eye, and here on the throat, down underneath the tail, and at the base of the belly. Think about that. And you can start to then apply that sort of level of observation to other bird species too. Does this bird have wing bars? What color are its feet? And what color is its bill? Taking in little details like that can be super helpful, especially as we get, well, I'm getting way ahead. I was going to say as we get through winter and into springtime, but even in wintertime, we do have some birds that come and visit our area. The juncos, the American tree sparrows, things that we don't see all the time, and paying attention to little details like that can be really helpful in making the proper identifications. Okay, so speaking of using a lip balm for measuring purposes, this particular Blistex has been with me for, through a couple years of moths and scat identifications. And a couple of weeks ago, I was in a little bit of a hurry. I needed to do some laundry. I emptied the pockets of my pants, but I wasn't real careful about how I didn't check every pocket. And I think as I was flipping the pants into the laundry basket, this dear old Blistex flipped out. It didn't make it onto the counter. I didn't wash it, but I did drop it on the floor. And one of my furry roommates got a hold of it. I have a feeling I know which one, but the 2 5/8 inch measuring device that you guys have seen over and over and over again for, gosh, we've been doing this over a year and a half now. It bit the dust, but thanks to you, Sarah, and to you, Kay, I've got plenty of backups. In fact, I think I've got one in my pocket right now. The good news is, especially if you're new to Good Natured, you'll be seeing a bright, shiny new Blistex for the next time I take a picture where I have to measure something. But anyway, I thought you guys would get a kick out of that. It was a moment of sadness, but I was cheered by the fact knowing that I've got several backups just waiting to be used. So with that, last time we got together, I mentioned that we are at Hickory Knowles. We're housing a Blandings turtle that is part of the DuPage Forest Preserve District's Head Start program. This is a really neat program. And right after we met the last time, we got some more information from DuPage. So when Hickory Knowles opened in 2011, we wanted to have sort of a signature display, something that showed our commitment as a staff and as a park district to the preservation of not just the areas in our park district, but the greater community of plants and animals in Kane County and in Northern Illinois. And we struck up a partnership with the Forest Preserve of DuPage County, Forest Preserve District over in DuPage. And they had been, for a few years already at that time, been working with a state endangered species of turtle, the Blandings turtle. And what they were doing at the time, and what's actually been the centerpiece of the success of the program, is going out and finding wild female Blandings turtles and putting a radio transmitter device on them, and then going out in the springtime at a time when they would be gravid or carrying eggs, at locating them and then bringing them into laying pens. One of the big problems, one of the reasons that Blandings turtles are endangered is because their eggs get consumed by a lot of predators in the area. Anything from raccoons and skunks to coyotes and foxes. A lot of different creatures will dig up a Blandings nest and eat dig up a turtle nest. It doesn't even have to be a Blanding's turtle. They'll eat the eggs. But with other turtles in the area, like let's say our snapping turtles, a snapping turtle female, gosh, they can make dozens of eggs, and they will also often have more than one nest. They might deposit 20 eggs in one spot and then hike along and deposit another 20 eggs somewhere else. A Blanding's turtle female might produce 20 eggs total, and that would be a good year for her. Oftentimes they don't even produce that many, and it's just a single clutch. So if that nest gets predated, that female's reproductive offerings for that year are wiped out. So anyway, by bringing wild females into captivity just briefly so they can deposit their eggs and then returning them back to the exact spot where they were found, that was how this program started and was able to gain traction and develop some captive breeding stock. So here we've got some kind of neat facts and figures here. Oop, let's go back. This year, so the biologists and the field staff that is participating in this program caught the greatest number of head-started turtles ever, 230. 16 of those that were recovered were wild, naturally occurring animals. 9 they weren't exactly sure of, and then the rest were as a result of this fantastic program. The district also was able to recover 241 fertile eggs from a total of 24 gravid females. Of those 241 eggs, 229 little turtles hatched out. There's lots more facts and figures. 121 of those hatchlings were from 11 different wild female turtles. So again, we're looking at some good genetic diversity. 17 of those eggs were from 2 females of uncertain origin. And then 91 came from 11 females that were part of the district's Head Start program. And again, Head Start, that means that these turtles are raised from the hatchling size. They're raised in captivity for, I believe it's 2 years, up to the size where there's less of a chance of them being predated. Just as turtle eggs are kind of a hot commodity amongst predators, young turtles are as well. Their shells have yet to fully develop, so they're kind of soft. I call them nature's Oreos. But growing them in captivity, making sure that they don't have any, they're not able to see or hear humans. There's a lot of precautions that are taken. So these animals are raised in an environment where human intervention is minimal. Anyway, then they get released when they're, about the size of I would say a hamburger. Their shells are firmer. They're a little bit better able to fend for themselves. So anyway, there are now 11 females from that Head Start program that are of reproductive age and size, and they produced 91 viable eggs this year, which was pretty darn cool. And then this I thought was really neat. This is, so the way turtles are numbered, and if you come to Hickory Knowles, you'll notice that we have numbers on the backs of our turtles. They also are microchipped. We just don't happen to have a scanner, but in order to keep track of who's who, we have numbers on their backs. Those numbers, the second set of numbers in this example here is the hatch order number that was assigned. This was the 140th turtle to hatch in 2021. So that's how you decipher that little code number there. 21 it refers to the year, and 140 is the hatch order, or the 140th turtle to come out of its egg this year. This turtle happens to be the 4,000th hatchling that's been produced by this Head Start program. And the good folks at DuPage were kind enough to provide us with a family tree of number 140. So she goes back, her grandma was Rose, who was Blanding's turtle number 14, a wild female, one that has a radio transmitter that was brought and would be captured in the wild, brought back to lay her eggs, and then released back into the wild. Well, she produced an egg that became part of the Head Start program, turtle number 43, who hatched in the year 2003. So we can see from that her number, number 03-043. So 2003, the 43rd turtle to have hatched that year. So that was 18 years ago. And this turtle
your
is...
camera moved up to the ceiling. Nice fan though.
Oh man, you're going to see my collection of cobwebs up there. Hold on. We'll bring that back down. I don't have no idea of how this is gonna frame back up again, but hopefully that's reasonably. I bet my camera nodded off the way some of you guys might be doing too. Well, we'll see how that sizes up later. Thanks for the heads up on that, Sarah. Anyway, the 4,000th hatchling in the program is a third generation of this head starting program. So that's kind of exciting news. When you're working with species that are threatened or endangered, sometimes things don't go this way. Sometimes the numbers, there's a reason an animal is endangered. It could be that it is completely lost its niche in the ecosystem that it exists in, and it's just time for it to fade away. Extinction is a natural part of things. Animals have been going extinct for centuries. The only problem is that right now, in this day and age, we're seeing a lot of animals threatened with extinction due to human impact. And so this is certainly one of those animals. Besides the effect of predators eating, consuming their eggs and their young, humans have paved over, filled in, drained a lot of the wetlands that these Blanding's turtles require. And a big issue with Blanding's turtles is road mortality. These are very mobile turtles. They walk around a lot, and you really can't walk around in suburbia without having to cross roads. So this is a way that DuPage County is, and again, this has been going on now for over 20 years, working to bring back an animal that has been heavily impacted by human activity. King County too, we're a little bit, King County just hired its first wildlife biologist within the last 10 years or so. But the programs here in Kane County are gaining traction as well. And I would imagine in a few years, maybe we'll be getting reports like this from our fellow friends over in Kane County. So anyway, a little happy news there on the Blanding's turtle front. And then this, since it's a sort of a holiday episode, I just wanted to share with you a little matter that came up at the Good Natured World headquarters last week. We had a gathering. Some of you know my office is no longer in the Nature Center. I don't work out of Hickory Knowles anymore. I am still considered in an organizational sense. I'm still part of the nature department, but because I'm essentially on the road all the time doing outreach, I am now housed, my office is in the marketing department. So marketing land, as I like to call it, there's all kinds of fun things that happen in marketing land. And one thing that has been a tradition there is a Christmas lunch. And Erica, our marketing manager, always makes sure that there's some sort of fun activity. Last year we did little holiday themed paintings. This year it was gingerbread houses. And I gotta tell you, I work with some really talented people. Check these out. Look at, this is Jacqueline, who's our district's graphic designer. Now, we all worked on our houses for about the same amount of time, but look at, she managed to add all that detail. She's even got little candy canes on the sidewalk leading up to her gingerbread house. I mean, really phenomenal work. Well, now I have to say, when I was given my kit, it did look a little bent, and I did have a little trouble getting my parts to stick together. And also, I should add, I've never made a gingerbread house before. The advice from my coworkers was to use lots of icing. So I did, but then I guess I didn't hold it quite long enough. I'm used to, wood glue and things like that might grab fairly quickly. Icing apparently takes a little bit longer. So I had one tragedy, but I averted it by kind of shoring up the sides with some more icing. But then, yeah, we had a complete fail. The one side of the roof cracked down the center. But I'm a naturalist and not a gingerbread house builder. As Erica was lining the houses up for our final pick, I remembered I don't have any more gumdrops or jawbreakers or anything like that in my office, but what I did have was a grasshopper. So it's maybe a a nightmare come true to me. It'd be kind of a dream come true to find a giant grasshopper like that out and about. But it was my way of helping save what otherwise would have been a total fail. And maybe you can use this tip sometimes too. Keep a giant insect or plastic snakes or something can help add a little bit of whimsical touch to your holiday decor. All right, with that, I'm gonna get back to business here, give you a little teaser for next week. This is a picture taken at a discreet distance. We had a deer, a young doe, get hit by a car near the Hickory Knowles natural area. And at the request of some local residents who are concerned that the deer might act as an attractant for coyotes, which would then eat their pets and their children, they wanted us to get the deer away. So we did. We plan to do a little bit more of coyote PR in the neighborhood there, because yes, they might have come and eaten the deer on the spot, but they would have not then, like, they wouldn't have caused the problems that the neighbors were afraid of. But that's another topic we'll get into next week, because you'll notice surrounding this roadkill deer, which is in a secure location. We moved it away from Hickory Knowles. This is another park district location. Those two boxes that are sort of facing the deer, those are trail cams. We didn't want to let a good roadkill deer go to waste. We wanted to see if we could create or recreate a carcass cam adventure like we had a couple of years ago when we had another roadkill deer. So next week we will reveal some of the still photos and the videos that were taken by the visitors to this deer carcass cafe. We've got other things we'll talk about next week too, namely bird feeders and the birds that come to them. So with that, I'm going to stop the screen share and turn it over to you guys. Let's see. No, that's not too bad. Let's see, we got some chats here. With white patches on the tail as they fly. Was that going back to the Canada geese? Yes. Bobby, yeah. So when we were talking about the demise of the Blistex, whichever roommate has the softest lips, I don't know. There's something. I don't know if you guys can hear that. There's a lot of clunking going on upstairs. I'm not sure which furry roommate is chewing on what right now, but I should probably check their lips to see who has not the cracked, chapped look. So okay, the hatchlings. That's a good question. Well, it's everybody asks good questions. That's a sensitive question, though. There are super secret locations within the DuPage County Forest Preserve Network where those turtles are released. So most of the egg laying takes place at Willowbrook Wildlife, which is in Glen Ellen. I believe that's where the rearing pens are set up. In fact, if you go to Willowbrook in Glen Ellen, sometimes you can see the incubation area. It's not really open to the public, but sometimes there's a window you can look through. And besides incubating, just getting the eggs to hatch, the staff does do some manipulation with temperature, because the sex of the turtle, actually this is true of, I believe it's all reptiles, but the baby, the gender is determined by the temperature at which the eggs are incubated. So lower temperatures produce males, warmer temperatures will produce females. So they can kind of control what the outcome is of a batch of eggs by changing the temperature, making it slightly higher or slightly lower. But they are not, the eggs, the young are dispersed in a way that makes sense in the view of long-term survival. Some areas where these wild turtles exist are kind of dangerous. There's busy roads, there's railroad tracks. So they are somewhat careful about where those turtles are put back in the wild. Hope that answers your question, Bob. Jackalope. I actually, I only have one species of jackalope, the wall drug jackalope. The others, there's a brass, I used to hang my hat on that brass moose, and then, yeah, there's a whitetail mount. So yeah, maybe, maybe for future good natures, I could do a little more rearranging here. Again, I'm not a decorator. I might try to refine this setup in the future, because gosh, it came in handy tonight. I was super glad I didn't have to jump in the car and go down to world headquarters, and we were able to have another fireside chat. Yes, Bob, thanks for pointing that out too, about the robins having the white patches. So yes, not the Canada geese, but the chat refers to where the white on the robin is. Sorry about confusing you there. Does anybody else have anything that they would care to add? It's great to see you all, by the way. Hope you're someplace where you're warm and dry and safe, because it looks like we did actually get some winter weather finally. I've been kind of excited. Yeah. In fact, I might go out afterwards and throw a couple of snowballs. If nobody else has anything for the group, I think we'll say good night. Have a great, good-natured rest of your week, and we'll see you back here next week. Right, take care.
Thank you, Pam.
Great to see y'all.
Thanks, Pam.
Thank
Happy
you.
holidays.
Good night.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Pam.
New
Bye-bye.
Year. Thanks,
New
Pam.
Year.
Thank you, Pam. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Oh, here come the roommates. Great to see you, Christy. Take care.